Good evening. So for hundreds of years in the spiritual tradition of our church, this story of Martha and Mary has been understood to demonstrate what we call in the sort of the prayer dimension of the church, the active versus the contemplative life. And a lot of people don't know what that means. So the active spiritual life would be active ministry, right? So maybe from a lay standpoint, you're working in some spiritual ministry of some kind. So maybe we have a soup kitchen somewhere, or you're involved in setting up Cresil, which is very popular in this area. Maybe you lead the rosary before Mass. Within the Mass, you're an usher, you're a communion distributor, you serve, read. All of that is an active participation in the faith, which is very spiritual. It is, in and of itself, the work itself, a prayer to God. And it even goes beyond that. So moms, dads, grandpas, grandmas, as you're raising your family, to a very real degree, going to your job to provide for your family as you raise them in the faith and provide for them, maybe paying for Catholic education, paying academy fees, whatever it is to support them being raised in the faith is also that active spiritual life. And so it's safe to say that a lot of Catholics don't even realize that they're actively participating in the kingdom and work of God prayerfully, spiritually, just by living a life of faith. Just by living a life of faith. Being faithful to your primary vocation of marriage and being a mother or a father, a grandpa or a grandma. That's Martha. More about that in a second. Then there's the contemplative way. Now, the contemplative way usually is best understood with the extremes. So, the Carthusians or the Trappist monks. Carthusians have their cell, they call it, which is basically their one little room. They live in community, but they don't talk to each other. They just simply go about their work every day, and their entire life is a prayer. And outside of the active end of what they need to do, cutting wood, preparing food, cleaning the monastery, so forth and so on, most of their life is spent in quiet contemplation, praying over the scriptures, much time before the Blessed Sacrament, slow walks, praying the rosary, always with godly things on their mind, having given their whole life over to Jesus to simply be with Jesus. Now, there's no need for me to really go into great detail with the active life, right? Because in America, we're accustomed to hard work and long hours. Just as I'm speaking about it, I think of the Knights of Columbus. Hard-working men in their regular jobs that take the time to be hard-working men for the church. Cooking, grilling, meeting, setting up, tearing down, supporting the ministry of St. Joseph's, in our case, of whatever I happen to need to be able to actively minister to my people. That comes naturally to us as Americans. And it is pleasing to God. There is no doubt about it. Since it's a good work. And good works should always accompany your faith in Jesus. Not that, as we are accused by so many times by our Protestant brethren, that we are saved by works. By no means. We're saved by Jesus Christ and by his love and his grace. But clearly, having entered into a relationship with Jesus, you want to serve him, especially if you're an American. Because that's what we do as Americans, we work. And if we love somebody, we're going to work for them. So if we love Jesus, we want to serve Jesus in that active ministry, and we know it all too well. But most of us know virtually nothing about the contemplative life that Mary was living in our gospel today, right? Martha was getting the food ready, cleaning the house, making sure Jesus had everything that he needed, as well as all of his followers, supporting the Lord. And there was her sister, right by his side at his knee, just listening to what the Lord had to say. Because we don't know this way of life, we don't enter into it. And many times, like Martha, being, I would argue, as an American, addicted to the active life, got to be doing something all the time, got to keep busy, got to keep going because that's where my value is. I define myself by my work ethic. Maybe becoming less common in our modern day and age. But when we are totally focused on that and neglect the contemplative end of things in our relationship with Jesus altogether, we don't enter into it. And because we don't enter into it, we have no peace. We have no joy. We have no patience. And in this excessiveness of work, we become driven beyond what is healthy. And many times it leads us to medicate with all sorts of unhealthy habits. And I don't think it's a stretch to say if you look out into the American culture, that's what you see everywhere. I can't wait to get to Friday. Well, why? Because after I get off work on Friday, I owe something to myself. Why? Because I've worked hard all this week. I've put food on this table. I've paid this mortgage. So I owe this to myself. One more trip to the refrigerator. One more click of that mouse. One more sip of whatever I like. I deserve that. Because I'm tired. I'm stressed. So just let me be. So to get out of that, we need to live the life of Mary, or the contemplative way. Well, what is it? Well, obviously it's prayer that we're talking about, but it's a type of prayer in which you are not praying to God, the active way, but rather, like Mary, you are being with God. Entering into a relationship with Him. A real relationship. And that's scary. Because I'm not doing anything. Rather, I'm being with someone. Which we have a difficult time right now because of the active, driven life of Americans, even being with each other. Just dropped a podcast this last week in which one of my points is we are saying more than we have ever said ever. We're texting, we're posting, we're whatever, talking, we're podcasting. But nobody's listening. And we are devoid of real relationship. As a matter of fact, many times when we get into a conversation with people, our attention spans are so low that within just moments we are already trying to get out of it, bored with it, It's exhausted itself and it's tiring. Because we're all locked up within ourselves because we're producing, doing, getting something done. So the question is how do we start it? Well, a nice beginning is to ask ourselves just two questions. Number one is, where do I find God in my life? Well, church. Well, now you're doing, right? Packed up everybody, got them into the car, got them into the pew, organizing everybody in the pew right now, taking kids out, taking kids in, get them back in the car, get them out of here, go home, and then what? Well, yeah, you experienced God and you fulfilled your duty, but did you really enter into a relationship with Him in this Mass? And I get it. It's tough, right? We got a lot of stuff going on even in the Mass. Trust me, I see it. It's beautiful. But where in your life do you experience that relationship with God? Do you have a relationship with God? Do you know Jesus Christ? Like, have a personal relationship with Him? If I asked you, who is He? What is He like? Could you answer that question? Once again, a child can. I swear the Holy Spirit just activates these children. Because in that place, just like Mary, when you spend time with Jesus, that's where you are going to find and receive your true happiness and joy and spiritual health. If all we do is try to serve God without ever being with Him, the practice of our faith soon can be compared to a mom or a dad, a husband or a wife that just simply works like crazy for their family. All the while never enjoying the gift of being with them. And we see this. These folks, after some time, feel burdened, underappreciated, and rejected. Why don't you notice what I'm doing? It's Martha all over again, right? I've done all these things in the house. I went to my job. I did this. I did that. And the family is just sitting back saying, you know what we wanted? We just want you, Dad. We don't need any more money. We need you home. Thank you. I'm on a roll. And because we don't want to be in that spot, because that's difficult, both with God and people, it's complicated, right? It's easier to work and provide. We start to get burned out. It's a big thing right now in America, burnout. Trust me, it can happen to us priests real easy. If you're not receiving from God, many times even if you are, what is being demanded of you for nothing, no appreciation, over the years compiles upon itself. Just like a mom or a dad, a husband or a wife. And we got to keep coming back to Jesus because that's what this is all about. And it's not just the priesthood. What your marriage is all about is Jesus. What this life is all about is Jesus. Hence, as we said last weekend, the more we move away from that, loving God, the more life makes no sense at all. And things go horribly wrong. The second question then, which we want to ask ourselves, is where do I find rest and peace in my life? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about vacations or time off. Many times we come back more tired from those than what we entered into them on, right? Because as Americans, we got to do there too. We don't know how to relax, right? I spent a lot of money on this. We got plane tickets. We went to this place. But we got to see everything. And again, thank you, God. I'm not talking about that. That's what Jesus says, right? I came to give you peace. I don't give you peace the way the world gives you peace, but differently. Where's that place where your soul is calm versus anxious and worried? And only you can find that. Now, that might be a place in your home that you're able to escape from. It's a walk for some people, the more nature-orientated folks, as they pray, whatever prayers they're praying, but stop and see the sunset and experience God. I'm going to tell you right now, for me, it's my holy hour. And we have adoration all over this city. If you can't find adoration in Dickinson, I don't know. Wow. Right? Because this is like the holiest city in North Dakota. So people are like, I can't find a place to go to Mass. And I'm like, really? There's like 6 Masses a day in Dickinson. But it's Jesus in the Eucharist, because that's really Him. And I can't tell you how many people I have directed, and I'm open to directing more, but the first thing I say to them, and if I'm your director, I'm like, where do you pray? And they're like, well, I pray, and they rattle off all the prayers. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. Where are you spending time with Christ? Because it's just like any other relationship. You can't love anybody that you don't spend time with them, because you're not going to know them. And they're like, oh, they want to talk politics or something in spiritual direction. I'm like, no, that's not what this is about. So the first thing we need to do is get you in front of Jesus in the Eucharist. And then comes the stare, right? Like, well, how long? How about an hour? Whoa! Well, I guarantee you're spending a whole lot more than an hour on a whole bunch of stuff that you think is going to relax you, that is actually worsening your life. And so it starts slow, right? And they get maybe once a week. Well, by the end of probably about a 2-year deal, they're totally immersed in adoration. And as you probably heard me say before, the way this works, it's like those old 90s things with all the dots, the picture, and the longer you stared at it, suddenly this thing emerged, like a ship came out of it, because your eyes adjusted, and you were like, whoa, I can see it, and everybody else is like, what is it? And they try it, and maybe it worked after a while. It's the same with adoration. One day, you look back after a year or whatever it's been, and you're like, holy smokes, has my life changed for the better. And you can't imagine your life any longer without adoration in front of the Blessed Sacrament. And now you speak the language. But you never get there if you don't try it. It's like almost like an ignition. You got to add fuel into the fire before it starts to burn. And most people are unwilling to do that. Or they're afraid nothing will happen. I promise you. After directing hundreds of people, it happens like clockwork. Because Jesus is really there. So do you come to spend time with Christ? Yes, you're in Mass. Of all of the hours in your week, is there any amount of time that you're able to get in for a daily Mass, or just to come and sit in the pew and be with Him here? Why in the world is He in the tabernacle? It certainly isn't for Himself. It's because He wants to be with you. And He sits here alone across the world, now like never before in human history, just waiting. And no one comes. And it's not like, oh, poor Jesus. No one comes, poor you. Because you're not entering into the fullness of life. You have no idea how He is going to expand your life and make it better. Find the things that you've always been looking for. But if you don't do that, eventually what happens, even if you're coming to Mass and have minimal prayer, like you're praying the rosary or something, if you're working and constantly living the active life, you will have that Martha moment. Lord, where are you? Why aren't you listening to my prayers? I've been asking and asking and asking. And He looks at you and He says, you're troubled with all of these things. All you need to do is just come and be with me. I am convinced that is actually something certainly the church needs to realize that hasn't, is that we have everything we need for everything we need in the world right in the Blessed Sacrament. We don't need to do anything. We just need to come be with him, and when we finally figure that out, we will have the world that we're looking for. Because we're fallen and we can't figure it out. So all the stupid programs in the world are never going to fix anything, and they haven't. The track record proves itself. But the one thing that we haven't done is that. Come to Jesus for everything. We wouldn't do it in the garden, and we won't do it now. So where do you find yourself as I'm speaking to you about this right now? What's going off in you? You're going about money, the Spirit's moving, saying, yeah, I probably really should do this. Well, then do it. I don't know where I'd be without it. I can guarantee you I wouldn't be a priest still if I didn't have my holy hour. No way, if and buts about it. Because I'm in this for Jesus, and I know Jesus. And there is no way I'm leaving him. But the only reason I know him is because I've been doing this holy hour for 25 years, and I'm not trying to sound holy because I'm not. And I'm not being humble. Trust me, I know my sins. But I know him, and it's real. And once it's real for you, your whole life radically takes on a different meaning. As we come to receive Holy Communion today, I just want you to sit there and just ask him to provide this for you. Jesus, take this and provide for me. Give me a place in my life where I can have a real, personal relationship with you.